This is the Real Estate Investing Abundance Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Allen. I know you're excited to get into today's show, but I have a very exciting announcement to share with you before moving to the show. We've just launched a complimentary and comprehensive webinar that, among other things, shows you how to legally use passive real estate investing to reduce your taxes, recession-proof your nest egg, and take the sting out of inflation. If you are curious to learn more, go to stevetucker.com/webinar. It is complimentary and only takes a couple of minutes of your time. Once again, that is stevetucker.com/webinar. I'll see you in the webinar. Enjoy today's show. Hello, enlightened investors, and welcome back to Real Estate Investing Abundance. I'm your host, Dr. Allen, and what a pleasure to be back with you again today. As always, thank you for being with us. And today we are going to meet an individual who has a wealth of experience in real estate investing. Charles King is with us, and he has gone from door-to-door salesman to multifamily real estate investing success. Charles King is better known as Chad, began his professional career as a salesman at Xerox. Within 2 years, he became a top producer. While generating a six-figure income from sales, he simultaneously studied successful individuals who possessed tremendous wealth. He came to realize they all shared one commonality, and that was real estate. With that awareness, he jumped feet first into single-family wholesaling, fix and flip, completing over 400 deals in 3 years. This didn't provide the freedom, particularly the time freedom and prosperity that he had dreamed of. So after finding the missing link he'd always been searching for, he transitioned to multifamily. Through leveraging partnerships, syndications, Chad developed the financial freedom he dreamed of. And today he owns several companies and is an accomplished investor, coach, mentor, and teacher. And he is, by the way, one of my coaches and mentors. So Chad, take us into the show and share a memorable experience that helped you to be who you are today.
Yeah. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me. Appreciate the introduction. I'm looking forward to having a conversation, and it's going to be a good time. I will tell you that when you asked me that question, the first thing that popped into my head was just from a young age, my dad has always instilled work ethic and integrity in me. And I remember distinctively being 8 years old and cleaning helicopters. My dad was a career military man, and I was cleaning helicopters at 8 years old, vacuuming them out. When they would come into the hangar, I would wash them and vacuum the helicopters. And then the guys would take me for rides, and that's how I would get rides. And I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. But that being said, from 8 years old on, like, I always had summer jobs. I always had to do things like when school was out, I was always working. So from a very young age, one of my most formative memories was always just working hard, like putting in work and in order to get something. So I always wanted those helicopter rides, and I had to scrub those things down. I had to vacuum them out. And that was a very formative memory for me, because I think what we do now requires quite a bit of work behind the scenes. And a lot of people don't see all of the late nights, all of the early mornings, all of the work behind closed doors that no one sees. We live in this social media world where everybody just sees the highlight reel of everybody's lives, but you don't really see all the work that's being put in the back end. So I learned from a young age to be able to put that work in.
Yeah, we do kind of live in a Barbie world, don't we? So,
yeah.
Well, yeah, wow, that it must have been quite challenging scrubbing down those helicopters. I think comparing that to a car, I think doing a car would be a very, very simple job compared to cleaning a helicopter.
Yeah.
Did you have to climb up on a ladder? Or
Yeah, my mom was not fond of that gig, because I had the ladders that would get me up on those to clean the little robins. And I'd have to get up to clean the tail and all that stuff. So,
wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
8 years old.
You've been up close and personal to helicopters. I never have been, never even close to them, much less have I ever ridden in one.
They're a good time. You should get out in one if you can.
It doesn't sound like a good time to me. I don't even particularly care for flying, though I've done a lot of it. But
yeah.
Anyway, so let's get into real estate, Chad. So many professionals, and that's a large portion of our audience, have spent fortunes in education and training to attain positions and recognition in their field. And they've done this because they have a calling and a passion to be where they are, and they're not particularly interested in taking on more duties and responsibilities because they have a very full life as it is. So what would provoke such individuals to take on this endeavor of passive investing in real estate?
That's a great question. I think so. At the end of the day, we live right now when we're filming this, interest rates are rising. We live in a time of hyperinflation. And I think you have got to get your money to work for you in vehicles that are that preserve your capital, that multiply your capital, that provide tax benefits for you and your family, and that provide cash flow and distributions, as well as equity appreciation. And I have never seen another vehicle through all of my studies of the financial markets and every other thing, all the other businesses that I'm in. I've never seen another vehicle that is as stable as real estate. Now, we have been up and to the right for well over a decade now in the real estate sector, and we're starting to see the plateau now. And I do believe we're in a little bit of a decline, and it just depends how deep this valley goes. But that being said, there's no other vehicle out there that can preserve your wealth, that can multiply your wealth as much as real estate can. So for all of the professionals that are listening that have maybe, your high net worth individuals or your high income earners, you have got to get your money to start making babies for you. And commercial real estate, whether it's multifamily apartments, which is about 90% of my portfolio, self-storage facilities, which we're closing on next week. We have mobile home parks in our portfolio, a couple of office buildings, whether it's any type of commercial real estate, as long as it's good debt, right? Being paid down by the people who rent the place. And then I think it's just about getting your money to work for you. And then partnering with good operators that are selecting the deals, that are scrutinizing the underwriting and stress testing the deals, because it's not just about the deal that you're investing in. If you're a passive investor, it's about the operator who's running it. So making sure that you're vetting the operators. How many properties have they closed? How many have they exited? What was their average return to their investors when they did exit? So it's about a lot of other things than the actual piece of real estate. You have to look at a lot of factors when passive investing. But in my opinion, you kind of have to do it. Otherwise, you're not keeping up and your money's getting printed away.
Many professionals have what is often considered generous retirement plans through their companies. They have 401ks and IRAs. Are those not sufficient to build wealth and provide comfortable retirement and even perhaps leave a legacy for their children?
Well, I mean, that depends who you ask. I might ruffle some feathers, but I don't really believe in those promises at the end, because those are really never guaranteed to be there. So I don't have any 401ks. I don't have any IRAs. I can't speak to those. I do have some whole life policies. I practice in the infinite banking concept, but I am really focused on buying assets that produce income that I can see, feel, touch, that are not susceptible. I mean, they are susceptible, but not as susceptible to the socioeconomic factors of the world, right? Whereas, a lot of those programs, a lot of those pension programs are actually belly up, right? They're actually bankrupt. The Social Security program. Some people are relying on a lot of those programs when they retire, and there's never a guarantee that those are going to be there. Whereas if you walk down the street and you go look at an apartment complex that I own down the street, that thing's not going anywhere. It's going to be there. So I get nervous for people who are only reliant on those types of retirement plans that have not diversified. Now, you can have your money in a 401k and an IRA, but I do recommend self-directing and diversifying a little bit within your IRA or 401k into some diversified real estate portfolios and getting into some syndications as a limited partner, because it hedges against the downside of what could potentially come when those programs turn out to be what they are, which is bankrupt.
Could you talk to us just a little bit more about self-directed 401ks and IRAs? There are certainly many in our audience who are already doing that, but there are folks who this is a totally new concept for. So
Sure.
Can you explain that concept a bit more?
Yeah. So when we purchase a new property, we create an LLC that purchases that existing asset. It's a single asset entity. So we take limited partners onto that entity and we sell shares of that LLC. And that LLC just owns the building, right? So limited partners can purchase shares of the LLC. It's called a syndication. We do either a 506B or 506C, depending on the deal. And then what's cool is I'd say about probably 33%, 33 to 40% of our investors are actually through custodians, and they invest with their self-directed IRAs or 401ks. What's cool is you actually leave the money in your the money is in your retirement account, and you don't have to liquidate and have a taxable event, which I think is the biggest thing for the reason why people self-direct. You don't have to liquidate your 401k or IRA, have a taxable event, and then go invest that money into real estate. You can just self-direct it within your retirement account into a real estate deal. And then our distributions, when we do quarterly distributions, we actually send that money straight through your custodian back into your retirement account in your IRA. The only thing you cannot participate in with a self-directed IRA or 401k is depreciation. So we do a lot of cost segregation studies where we get bonus depreciation. It was 100% last year. It's 80% this year, which is still very good. And we can take all of that depreciation and help offset taxable income for you. That can't be done if you're in an IRA or 401k, but you still can self-direct it and have a non-taxable event and be able to invest passively in real estate through that program. So I'd highly recommend it. We have minimum 33% of our investment dollars for every syndication is usually IRAs or 401ks.
And self-directing it, you just have the opportunity to really massively grow that 401k and that IRA. When you just leave them in institutional plans, they're not going to grow more than probably 5 or 6% per year.
That's correct. Yeah.
In real estate, self-directed means you can enhance that tremendously.
Yeah,
so,
and
go ahead.
I was going to say, so a little bit of credibility for us. We've taken 7 properties full cycle now, where we bought them, we've repositioned them, and now we've exited or refinanced and returned capital plus interest to their investors. We've averaged a 19% internal rate of return to our investors on our deals. Some of them are even higher than that. But, I don't know where else you're getting a 19% internal rate of return, almost a 22% average annual return on our properties that we've returned to our investors. So it's just, you have got to get your money. I mean, wherever the inflation number is, it's a lag indicator. So that number, I believe, is even higher than it currently is. So if your money's not working for you at 7, 8, north of 8%, you're actually, losing money. So you got to get into some good deals and get some multipliers on top.
Yeah, and it's just not going to happen in an institutional 401k or IRA.
Yeah.
Once one decides that they do want to get into passive real estate investing, whether they're an educator, a healthcare provider, architect, engineer, whatever, and they decide they want to do this, where is a good starting point?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I always recommend getting educated and figuring out if you've already done the education phase, like Alan's saying, and now you're ready to go, like where's a good place to get started? I think you do need to get in the room with other folks that are already active in the real estate space. So if you can find a group or a networking event or something where you have people that are active, that are doing it, that are actually in the weeds. I'm a personal fan of investing with owner operators like myself. Rather than just going and investing in a REIT, which is just like a massive fund that's a diversified where you own just a fraction of a fraction. I do like diversifying in multiple deals, but like I said in the beginning, you're really investing a lot in the operator, because I've seen bad operators screw up great deals, and I've seen great operators turn bad deals into gold. And it's finding those operators that you resonate with from a core value standpoint. That you believe in, that are going to do the right thing, even when no one's looking. Because there's been instances in my career where I've had to make decisions that directly affect all of my silent passive investors. And they don't know that I'm making these decisions, but they have got to trust me that I'm making the best decision for the fiduciary responsibility that I have to their capital. And I think if you have an operator that has a little bit of a wrong facing moral compass, there's opportunities for operators to do things that could skim and hurt the investors in order to pad their pockets. And I've seen it happen. So it's finding operators that are in the weeds, looking at deals. I look at 200 deals to buy one. So we're looking at a lot of deals across the Southeast United States. We target B2C class assets between 20 and 200 units. We're very, very targeted on what we're looking for, 80s, 90s, 2000s product. And we know what fits our buy box, and we know how to operate it. We know exactly what our operating expenses are per unit. We know exactly what our expense ratios are. We know where our DSCR coverage ratios need to be. We definitely know where we stress test our underwriting to stress test our vacancy, physical and economic vacancy, to know where our break-even points are. So it's about investing in somebody that knows what they're doing, because I wouldn't recommend just, putting money on a limited partnership on the first deal you see, or even the sexiest deal you see with return standpoint, because it could be a novice operator that's putting out this 20% IRR and a 3x multiple over 5 years, but they don't know how to underwrite the deal or project out. And they're projecting these crazy rent bumps, which we're not seeing anymore. When we were seeing 20% rent bumps a few years ago, year over year, we're seeing these crazy rent bumps. Those are gone. We're having to give concessions on some of our Class B properties now, having to give a month free or $500 credit up front to sign. So those crazy rent bumps are gone. So if somebody's projecting that out, that's going to hurt them. If people are projecting these crazy refinances in 24 months, thinking they're going to get back down to a 5.5%, and they're doing these crazy value add deals, and they have a maturity date coming in the next 12 to 24 months with some sort of bridge debt, if they're putting the wrong type of loan product on it, it's really going to hurt you as a passive investor. If they're projecting out the wrong rental rates, it's going to really hurt you as an investor, because that's a direct reflection of the value when they're going to try and exit. So, kind of a long-winded answer. I'm just really passionate about people selecting good operators for their deals, because I've seen it go the other direction. And I'm a limited partner myself. I invest in all my own deals, and I also invest in other people's deals that I believe in and trust in. And when I've gotten started, and I have been burned on a couple of deals, I've invested in the LP and not seen any distributions for 36 months, because they projected out way more operating capital that they thought they would have through rent bumps. And then they didn't project out enough expenses. They didn't project out a tax increase. They didn't project insurance increases. So basically all of the free cash flow was just going to covering the bad underwriting that they did on the front end. And it was a friend, kind of a friend of mine. And I had soft heartstrings, and I didn't do my due diligence that I should have. So there's a lot of those mistakes that I want your listeners to learn from, is just do your homework. Make sure the people that you're investing in have done theirs too.
Enlightened investors, if you haven't done so already, be sure and click that like button, and also click that share so others can take advantage of the content. And finally, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single one of our upcoming episodes. That's really vital information, and I appreciate you sharing that, Chad. I think that particularly for people who have not invested in private placements, particularly in real estate, I think these are their biggest fears, is that of getting involved with unscrupulous operators. Yeah. And while there are just amazing opportunities in real estate to build one's wealth, there are a lot of opportunities out there to become involved with really unscrupulous individuals.
Yeah.
Who may not even intend to be unscrupulous, although those people are out there, but they just may not know what it is that they're doing, and know how to really bring a property up to operational standards. And they may have, like you were talking about, really over projected unrealistic results and what have you. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's just really very important when people are considering this, to be involved with people that they know, like, and trust. And it isn't blind trust. It is trust grounded in the fact that they know that these operators know what they're doing there.
Yep.
Well, a lot of people like numbers. I don't. I like stories. So can you share a story or a couple of stories of passive investors that you have worked with, that have been involved with you? How did they successfully navigate their careers and at the same time take advantage of the private equity real estate investments?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm a numbers guy though, so I do like numbers. I have degrees in finance and accounting, and I thought when I went to college that degrees in finance and accounting were going to teach me how to become wealthy and learn about money, but it really teaches you how to balance somebody else's books. And so I got all my education really after my formal schooling, but I was always very fond of the numbers. But from a story standpoint, all of our investors, I think the cool thing that I'm seeing right now, being 8 years into this business and having taken multiple properties full cycle, is I'm starting to see, when we return amazing returns to our investors, We actually just refinanced a property a couple of weeks ago, and we did a refinance. We locked at 6.4%, which is still a great interest rate given where our operating income is to cover our debt service, and we're pretty healthy on that property. We bought it for 8.3 million, and we forced appreciation, and it just appraised for 15.5 in 36 months. So that's the cool thing about commercial real estate is the value of the building is based on the net income that produces. So if you have a great operator that has the ability to drive net income, net operating income, which is, income expenses below the line is net operating income. If you have a great operator that knows how to, manipulate that NOI, net operating income, and drive it forward, it directly affects the valuation of that building, unlike single family homes, which are directly affected by the way the surrounding homes are. But long-winded answer, we did a refinance a couple of weeks ago, and we returned all of the investors' principal plus interest at a 15% internal rate of return in 36 months. And I had probably 50% of the investors that did not want their money back. Like, they're like, where is your next project? Like, please, keep, like, they don't want it back because they don't have an alternative for it. So we have a storage facility that we're closing next week right here in Nashville, Tennessee. It's a 210 unit storage facility. Half of them are climate controlled, the other half are not. And we basically, all we did was take all of the investors' capital from the refinance and we just rolled it into the storage facility deal. We have another 32 unit that closes in October, and we took a good portion of those investors and moved them into that apartment complex that closes in October too. That one, we're assuming a 4% Freddie Mac loan. Somebody bought it, got in a little underwater. So we're buying it for about 15% less than they bought it for 2 years ago, which those opportunities are coming if you're paying attention. So the next 12 to 24 months, I think there's going to be some great buying opportunities if you're actively looking for deals. Now, as passive investors, now is a great time to build relationships with folks that are actively looking at deals, because you have to be looking at a lot of them in order to get one. So just keep that in mind, because I think the opportunities for people, especially on the creative side, we're structuring a lot of creative offers. Every offer that we make usually has about 2 to 3 options for the seller to pick from. So we're not just trying to hit them over the head with, the cash offer hammer or the traditional financing, because those types of offers are getting squeezed because of where interest rates are. So we're, 7% on community bank debt on some of these things. And we're in that sort of that gap period of these sellers holding on to their prices that they wanted, in 2021 when interest rates were 3.5%, 4%, and now interest rates are 7%, and they're still kind of hanging on to that price. But we're in that gap because we can't offer that price because now our debt service is almost double what it was. So we're in sort of that weird gap. And over time, over the next 12 to 24 months, I believe there's going to be a lot of people that are meeting in the middle, especially ones that got maturity dates coming up that did not think that they were going to have to refinance into a 7.5% or 8% loan. Those people are going to be looking to get out because they're not going to be able to support their new rates. So that being said, is a long-winded answer of saying, like, I'm really enjoying the passive investors that are just continuing to roll into every deal. And we're getting a good amount of our investors that are now just really waiting for all of the next opportunities and just rolling in because they've seen success now 7 times over. And it's like, I think that's pretty cool when you start to get some credibility, because anybody can buy a deal. But I have a quote that I like to say to the people that I mentee, and it's takeoffs are optional, but landings are mandatory. So anybody can buy a deal at any price, but can you land and can you successfully exit and hit your return metrics to your investors? Like, landings are mandatory, like takeoffs are optional. So all these folks that bought deals, like, yeah, that, maybe they bought 10 properties, but how many have they successfully sold, and what were their return metrics? What did they sell for? And those kinds of things. And that's where I think the story is starting to get much, much better now that we've have some repeat investors. And majority of our investors are coming back to our next deals.
I like that analogy. Takeoffs are optional. Landings are.
You've got to exit at some point. Like, I think some people think that you're going to buy this and just, this whole legacy wealth thing. People, and people that are syndicating deals, like, they think they're going to buy this and hold it for 50 years and give it to their grandkids. Well, you have investors' money that has funded this deal, and they are going to want their money back at some point. Typical hold times 5, 7, maybe 10 years. But at some point, you have got to land that plane. And when I look at a deal, Alan, I am looking at the exit. The second somebody brings me a deal, I'm looking at, when am I going to get out of this deal? How am I going to get out of this deal? How much am I going to get out of this deal for? I'm always looking at the landing. And if you're not equipped and experienced enough, you're just looking at the takeoff. And if you don't think about the landing, that's when you could potentially land in a valley, because you have to pair your debt. Your debt has to pair up with that exit, because if you if you're thinking you're going to exit in 7 and you're getting 36-month bridge debt, like you're not pairing your landing up, and your cash flow has to carry you over into your landing zone. So I always caution people, just it's better to buy no deal than a bad deal right now, and takeoffs are optional, landings are mandatory. So before you lift that plane off the ground, just make sure you know where you're landing that thing and when you're going to land it.
So just another cautionary tale to be investing with people who know what they're doing, because you look at 200 deals before taking one. So obviously there's a lot of very, very shiny objects out there, and very, very tempting for people to step into purchases that there's no good landing from. And and you don't want a bad landing.
You don't want to lose people's money. I look at people's money with I take a very strong fiduciary responsibility to our investors' money, more than my own. And I invest in all of our LPs too, of our deals. So I'm right there with you. And it's like I take that very seriously when people invest their hard-earned capital in me, not in the piece of real estate. Like they're investing it. I look at it like that. You're giving it to me. And I don't take that lightly. I think that's important, that whoever you're investing in does not take that lightly, that you're giving them your hard-earned money.
Absolutely. Well, Chad, you were a successful salesperson with Xerox. And when you found real estate investing and realized that that's where people who develop a substantial wealth, that's where they go to. You just jumped in feet first and you burnt the bridges and hit the ground running. What advice do you have for other people who may be deciding that they want to move from passive into the active side of real estate investing?
Yeah. Quit your job tomorrow. I'm just kidding. Don't do that. So I was in a situation, it was a very strategic move, and I had planned it with my, at the time, fiance, now wife, and she had a W-2 that was able to pay the bills. So it allowed me to make that jump and that transition. Because we had that covered, and we communicated a lot, and it was like, hey, we're going to do this, and it might suck for a while, but it will eventually pay off. And 2 years ago, 6 years in, we were able to retire her from her W-2 job through income from our properties. So it was a long road to do that, but the leap from going from passive to active, I think, needs to be done very strategically, especially right now. This is I'm not going to lie. We're in July 2023. Like, this is an interesting time to get into real estate full time, if that's what your goal is, with interest rates where they are, with the uncertainty in the market, with next year being an election year with already 7% interest rates. I think it's going to be a very, very telling next 12 to 24 months as far as where this economy is headed. And I don't take that decision lightly, of leaving a stable W-2 job and getting into this, because it's stressful, because you talk about where the income comes from that makes up, you don't close a deal and then the next day there's just checks hitting your mailbox. Some people think that, like, real estate, you go buy an apartment complex and then, like, tomorrow rent's just like flowing in and you can't even keep up with all the cash flow. Like, that's not how this works, especially if you're an active operator. Like, 9 times out of 10 for the first 24 months of a property, I'm just going to pay the investors their preferred return. Everything is going to stay in the operating account to keep units turning and to keep repositioning the property. It's usually 36 to 48 months before I'm even actually making money, because the first 12 months I'm usually accruing a preferred return while I'm repositioning a property. Even if it's stabilized, there's not a ton of excess cash flow, really. We make some fees on the beginning, but it's not like these checks are hitting every single month. So I think some people jump in feet first thinking that, I just got to get a deal done and then the cash flow is there. And it's not really like that. So I would recommend getting started, as a limited partner, if you can, with some excess cash, and getting your feet wet in a deal and like riding on the deal with the operator. If you're a limited partner in one of my deals, you can call me anytime. Right? People don't just get access to me, but you can call me anytime. If you're a limited partner in one of my deals, you can ask questions about the deal. You can come see the deal, like, get your feet in, if that's how you can do it, get your feet in that way. And then the other thing that I would say is I would definitely recommend getting a mentor, getting a coach, getting someone who has made the mistakes so that you can avoid making them, because you can now pay for speed. So if you are planning on making an exit from your W-2 job, I would make sure, number one, it's done strategically with your partner. If you're married, if you're not, like, I was in a situation where I was a little bit younger and I was able to take that chance at 24 years old. Right? If you have kids, it might be a little bit different, but communicate, make the decision, and then get a coach or mentor that has the blueprint, right? Do not try and reinvent the wheel. Real estate is not something that you're going to come in. There's no like Netflix to Blockbuster or Uber to taxis type scenario where you're going to sort of like come up with this new thing for real estate that nobody's thought of. So there is a blueprint. Pay somebody to get the blueprint that you have that has done what you want to do. Only take advice from people you would be willing to trade places with in that particular area. So if they have the portfolio you want, the apartment comp, whatever that you have, pay them for speed, for their experience, to help you avoid the same potholes, right? I stepped in a lot of potholes. I can help people avoid 6-figure, sometimes 7-figure mistakes just based on what, the mistakes that I've made in my past. So do it strategically, get a mentor, tiptoe. I take tiptoe in because now is the time, I believe, to come in cautiously. It's a tricky time in the market. And, this is all I do. Like, I don't have another job. Like, I am full-time commercial real estate investor and operator. And I'm 60,000 realtors already this year have hung their license up and gotten out of the business. 60,000 in 2023. So far. That's how tight this market's getting. The riffraff is getting cleaned out. The people who are just in here, kind of the floozies, the fly-by-night folks who just had seen the dollar signs, those people are not in the business anymore. So it takes commitment. It's going to take grit. It's going to take a lot of work, a lot of effort, a lot of energy. And if you can do it on nights and weekends to start, that's how I got started when I was flipping houses. I was flipping houses during the day. That was my active job. And that was how I made my income. And then in the evenings, I was underwriting deals. On the weekends, I was walking properties, apartment complexes. So I kind of was doing that for 2 to 3 years before I actually ended up buying my first 14-unit apartment complex. So I spent, a lot of that time getting my education behind me. Yeah.
Excellent advice. And I just reinforce that. Strategic, get a mentor, and tiptoe into the process there. Yep. Before we go here, just tell the folks how they can get in touch with you to take advantage of your offerings.
Yeah. Well, I feel like that was too short. I feel we got to keep giving them. that went by too fast, Alan. Yeah, I'm super passionate about people getting into real estate in some way or another, whether it's self-directing IRAs and whether it's getting in full time, if that's what you see fit for yourself. But I do believe that this is the best path to wealth and prosperity that there is. It's the most tried and true. It's been around for thousands of years. This is how people gain wealth for themselves and their families. And I'm very passionate about that. So whether you are, a professional that is loving their gig and making great money, that's awesome. See if you can get your money to work for you passively. And if you are not digging your job and you want to get into this, there's space for people who are willing to do the work. So I'm not trying to caution people to not get in, but I'm just telling them there is space for folks that are willing to put in the work, but it's going to take a lot of time and energy and effort. I can be found on Facebook at Chad King. You can catch me on Instagram. I post a little bit more of my family and personal life on Instagram at Mr. Chad King, MR Chad King, all one word. You can connect with me on those two platforms and, shoot me a message, shoot me a DM. If you're looking to invest passively in deals, we have 3 right now under contract. We're still actively buying and selling. I've sold a lot of assets in the past couple of years, but we're still actively buying and selling apartments. So you can connect with me there. Would love to have a conversation with you. I do some coaching and mentorship, like Alan mentioned, but at the very least, I would love to have a conversation with you and get you on the right track, whether it's passively investing in our deals or giving you some advice for becoming an active operator.
And we'll have that information in our show notes. Thank you so much, Chad. Wonderful conversation. Thanks for being with us today.
I appreciate you having me, Alan. Thanks for everything you're doing, spreading the message and getting people involved in this stuff. It's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you. Enlightened investors, wait, don't go just yet. I just want to remind you about our recently launched webinar that you will not want to miss. If you're at all curious and would like to learn more about how real estate investing can diversify your investment portfolio, alleviate the anxiety associated with Wall Street swings, leverage your 401ks and IRAs to substantially increase the return on your investment, and do all of this with turnkey, hands-off, passive real estate investments, then you'll want to immediately go to stevetalker.com/webinar. In the webinar, we'll also address the common dubious investment schemes that you want to avoid. To access the webinar, go to stevetalker.com/webinar. I look forward to seeing you in the webinar.
Thank you for tuning in to Real Estate Investing Abundance, brought to you by Steve Talker Capital, a company working for passionate professionals like you to develop financial independence built on solid, passive real estate investments. As part of our efforts to make the world a better place, Steve Talker Capital contributes to activities and organizations committed to better understand the equine. These endeavors attempt to enhance the human treatment of horses worldwide. Steve Talker Capital, working for a world where all creatures, great and small, flourish abundantly. For resources to develop your financial independence, connect with us at stevetalker.com.